Hello, this is Muskndusk again. I thought I'd read to you tonight. I have the cats in with me, so if there are any strange sounds in the background, it's probably them. I'm going to read from Gerald Durrell's Corfu Trilogy. And I'll begin. As the summer drew to a close, I found myself, to my delight, once more without a tutor. Mother had discovered that, as she so delicately put it, Margot and Peter were becoming too fond of one another. As the family was unanimous in its disapproval of Peter as a prospective relation by marriage, something obviously had to be done. Leslie's only contribution to the problem was to suggest shooting Peter, a plan that was, for some reason, greeted derisively. I thought it was a splendid idea, but I was in the minority. Larry's suggestion that the happy couple should be sent to live in Athens for a month, in order, as he explained, to get it out of their systems, was quashed by Mother on the grounds of immorality. Eventually, Mother dispensed with Peter's services. He left hurriedly and furtively, and we had hoped, with a tragic, tearful, and wildly indignant Margot, who, dressed in her most flowing and gloomy clothing for the event, played her part magnificently. Mother soothed and uttered gentle platitudes. Larry gave Margot lectures on free love, and Leslie, for reasons best known to himself, decided to play the part of the outraged brother, and kept appearing at intervals, brandishing a revolver and threatening to shoot Peter down like a dog if he set foot in the house again. In the midst of all this, Margot, tears trickling effectively down her face, made tragic gestures and told us her life was blighted. Spyro, who loved a good dramatic situation as well as anyone, spent his time weeping in sympathy with Margot and posting various friends of his along the docks to make sure that Peter did not attempt to get back onto the island. We all enjoyed ourselves very much, just as the things seemed to be dying a natural death, and Margot was able to eat a whole meal without bursting into tears. She got a note from Peter saying he would return for her. Margot, rather panic-stricken by the idea, showed the note to Mother, and once more the family leaped with enthusiasm into the farce. Spyro doubled his guard on the docks. Leslie oiled his guns and practised on a large cardboard figure pinned to the front of the house. Larry went about alternately urging Margot to disguise herself as a peasant and fly to Peter's arms, or to stop behaving like Camille. Margot, insulted, locked herself in the attic and refused to see anyone except me, as I was the only member of the family who had not taken sides. She lay there, weeping copiously and reading a volume of Tennyson. Occasionally she would break off to consume a large meal, which I carried up on a tray with undiminished appetite. Margot stayed closeted in the attic for a week. She was eventually brought down from there by a situation which made a fitting climax to the whole affair. Leslie had discovered that several small items had been vanishing from the Sea Cow. He had suspected that fishermen who rowed past the jetty at night. He decided that he would give the thieves something to think about, so he attached to his bedroom window 3 long-barreled shotguns aiming down the hill at the jetty. By an ingenious arrangement of strings, he could fire one barrel after the other without even getting out of bed. The range was, of course, too far to do any damage, but the whistling of shot through the olive leaves and the splashing as it pattered into the sea would, he felt, act as a fairly good deterrent. So carried away was he by his own brilliance that he omitted to mention to anyone that he had constructed his burglar trap. We had all retired to our rooms and were variously occupied. The house was silent. Outside came the gentle whispering of crickets in the hot night air. Suddenly there came a rapid series of colossal explosions that rocked the house and set all the dogs barking downstairs. I rushed into the landing where the pandemonium reigned. The dogs had rushed upstairs in a body to join in the fun, and were leaping about, yelping excitedly. Mother, looking wild and distraught, had rushed out of her bedroom in her voluminous nightie, under the impression that Margot had committed suicide. Larry burst angrily from his room to find out what the row was about, and Margot, under the impression that Peter had returned to claim her and was being slaughtered by Leslie, was fumbling badly at the lock on the attic door and screaming at the top of her voice. "She's done something silly, she's done something silly," wailed Mother, making frantic endeavours to get herself free from Whittle and Pook, who, thinking this was all a jolly nocturnal romp, had seized the end of her nightie and were tugging at it, growling ferociously. "It's the limit. You can't even sleep in this place. This family's driving me mad," bellowed Larry. "Don't hurt him. Leave him alone, you cowards, came Margot's voice, shrill and tearful, as she scrabbled wildly in an attempt to get the attic door open. Burglars! Keep calm, it's only burglars, yelled Leslie, opening his bedroom door. She's still alive, she's still alive. Get these dogs away. You brutes, how dare you shoot him? Let me out, let me out. Stop fussing, it's only burglars. Animals and explosions all day, and then bloody great 12 gun salutes in the middle of the night. It's carrying eccentricity too far. Eventually, Mother struggled up to the attic, trailing Whittle and Puke from the hem of her night attire, and, white and shaking, threw open the door to find an equally white and shaking Margot. After a lot of confusion, we discovered what had happened, what each of us had thought. Mother, trembling with shock, reprimanded Leslie severely. "You mustn't do things like that, dear," she pointed out. "It's really stupid. If you fire your guns off, do at least let us know." "Yes," said Larry bitterly. "Just give us a bit of warning, will you? Shout timber or something of the sort." "I don't see how I can be expected to take burglars by surprise if I've got to shout out warnings to you all," said Larry aggrievedly. "I'm damned if I see why we should all be taken by surprise too," said Larry. "Well, ring a bell or something, dear. Only please don't do that again. It's made me feel quite queer." But the episode got Margot out of the attic, which, as Mother said, was one mercy. In spite of being on nodding acquaintance with the family once again, Margot still preferred to nurse her broken heart in private. So she took to disappearing for long periods, with only the dogs for company. She waited until the sudden, fierce siroccos of summer had started before deciding that the ideal place for her to be alone was a small island situated in the bay opposite the house, about a mile out. One day, when her desire for solitude became overwhelming, she borrowed the Bootle Bumtricket without my permission, piled the dogs into it, and set off to the island to lie in the sun and to meditate on love. It was not until tea time, and with the aid of field glasses, that I discovered where my boat and Margot had got to. Irately, and somewhat unwisely, I told Mother of Margot's whereabouts, and pointed out that she had no business to borrow my boat without permission. And I'm being attacked by a pussycat at the moment. I do apologise. Hello, Victoria. Yes, I love you too. I do. Anyway, to continue. Who, I asked acidly, was going to build me a new boat if the Bootle Bum Trinket was wrecked? She's distracting me. She's a naughty girl, but I do love her. By now, the sirocco was howling round the house like a pack of wolves, and Mother, actuated by what I at first considered to be acute worry regarding the fate of the Bootle Bum Trinket, panted downstairs and hung out of the bedroom window, scanning the bay with field glasses. Lucrezia, sobbing and wringing her hands, hobbled up as well, and the two of them, trembling and anxious, kept chasing from window to window, peering out at the foam-flecked bay. Mother was all for sending someone out to rescue Margot, but there was no one available, so all she could do was squat at the window with the glasses glued to her eyes, while Lucrezia offered up prayers to Saint Spiridion and kept telling Mother a long and involved story about her uncle who had been drowned in just such a sirocco. Fortunately, Mother could only understand about 1 word in 7 of Lucrezia's tale. Eventually, it apparently dawned on Margot that she had better start for home before the sirocco got any worse, and we saw her come down through the trees to where the Bootle Bum Trinket bobbed and jerked at her moorings, but Margot's progress was slow, and, to say the least, curious. First, she fell down twice, then she ended up on the shore about 50 yards away from the boat, and wandered up about in circles for some time, apparently looking for it. Eventually, attracted by barks from Roger, she stumbled along the shore and found the boat. Then she had great difficulty in persuading Whittle and Buke to get into it. They did not mind boating when the weather was calm, but they had never been in a rough sea, and they had no intention of starting now. As soon as Whittle was safely installed in the boat, she would turn to catch Buke, who by the time she caught him, Whittle had leapt ashore again. This went on for some time. At last she managed to get them both in together, leaped in after them, and rowed strenuously for some time before realizing that she had not untied the boat. Mother watched her progress across the bay with bated breath. The Bootle Bum Trinket, being low in the water, was not always visible, and whenever it disappeared behind a particularly large wave, Mother would stiffen anxiously, convinced that the boat had foundered with all hands. Then the brave orange and white blob would appear once more on the crest of a wave, and Mother would breathe again. The course Margot steered was peculiar, for the boodle bum trinket tacked to and fro across the bay in a haphazard fashion, occasionally even reappearing above the waves when her nose pointed towards Albania. Once or twice Margot rose unsteadily to her feet and peered around the horizon, shading her eyes with her hand. Then she would sit down and start rowing once more. Right, I know it's in the middle of some action, but I'll stop there because I've got a pussycat about to click my mouse for me. So, this was Muskndusk and Victoria, and I hope that the reading has helped you to relax and forget about politics, and that you're now happily relaxed and able to sleep or just chill out. Bye for now. Bye.